Yeah, everybody, I've got a special treat for you today. We've got Michael Contento, and of course, he's a managing partner at F12, and he's had MSP before. He sold it and all sorts of amazing things. He's written a book. He's got a whole tons of other businesses. Apparently, he's looking to build a hotel in Italy too, and so there's a lot of things. And what's amazing is about there's a lot of amazing people that comes out of this channel, and what's even more amazing than that is they want to help others to achieve, the kind of success they've achieved. And we're going to talk about what Michael has built. It's called the Elan Framework, and we're going to talk about how and why this matters. So, Michael, first of all, man, welcome. How are you? You're in San Francisco.
Yeah, I wish I was in San Francisco. It'll be closer to Napa Valley, but
Yeah,
unfortunately, no, just a beautiful backdrop, I guess, right? It's inspiring to see the sunrise in San Francisco.
absolutely. And hey, I may want to hang out to Napa Valley too later. All right. So, brother, let's talk about you, Michael. Just give us a bit of a history about what you've done and how you got to where you are right now at F12.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you know what? I my answer evolves year over year, and I think it's all right. People might think that's not good, but my answer does evolve year over year because I learn more about myself year over year. And so I started very young, as we know in other interviews we did. I was a young entrepreneur, started at the age of 20, maybe a year even earlier, and my umbrella. Was kicked off as this first transactional company, more of a VAR business, not an MSP, because MSPs didn't really exist back then. Um, Over 26 years, I did what I can to build it. And I think we reached about $10 million in revenue, and then we got acquired. But during that journey, it's like something was missing in me, and I ventured off and I started other businesses, from pharmacies to franchises, second cup, freshies, and property investments. So there was always something lacking in my life making these different investments, and it was only until F12 acquired my umbrella, and Alex Webb, our CEO, gave me the opportunity to actually really focus on M&A. And
Mm.
when I started to focus on M&A, it's almost like I found why I was this massive investor. It's absolutely it was an awakening for me, understanding M&A and what it really means to prep yourself for an exit, and both on the buy side and the sell side. So last 4 years, 5 years, becoming a CEPA, a certified exit planner advisor, and focusing on M&A at F12. It really changed my perspective of entrepreneurship.
Well, Michael, you don't just talk the talk; you walk the walk, my friend. And now you're here and you've built this thing called the Elan framework. I believe it's a French word. First of all, what
Yes.
does it mean, man?
Okay. So, Ilan, really, the when I built the framework, the word I wanted is actually momentum,
Mm.
because it's all about the momentum we put in as entrepreneurs, as CEOs, the momentum, the drive that we put in our companies to succeed at something. Unfortunately, momentum was taken and trademarked, so I had to get creative, and I like my French wine. So in Elan, it means momentum in French, and really, it's all about the enthusiasm. It's all about your passion, being strategic, and the Elan framework is a combination of all my learnings in the last 4 to 5 years about M&A, um, and really prepping yourself properly for an exit. Um, I typically don't like using the word exit because right away entrepreneurs are like, "Oh, Mike, I'm not ready." You know what I mean? I
Mm.
don't want to sell.
Mm.
And the Elan framework is less about selling and more about making you uh, attractive enough to be purchased at any time. So
Mm.
it's less about selling your company, but starting with an end in mind is really the Elan framework.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know how to go from here, point A to point B, you have to know where point B is, right? Because how do you get there from here, right? It's sort of like something that we should know, but I think we lose track because we're so busy working in that darn business every day. We don't take a step back to learn, about to work on the business as everybody says, right? And sometimes, there's another saying that's really cool. It takes a wise man to learn from their mistakes, but a wiser man to learn from other people's mistakes. So it's it's sort of
That's
like,
good.
how do we understand, right? What we don't know, right? And we're so busy, busy, busy. How do we take that time? So, what do you think is the end game, right, for what your framework could help these CEOs and entrepreneurs to
So,
achieve
so,
over their business?
so, Julian, that's a great question, and I'm going to just talk in my perspective,
Yep.
my own dirty laundry, my own mistakes as an entrepreneur. So while I was growing my companies, especially my Bella, as a CEO working, we believe we're working on the business, but we're always entangled in the business. You know what I mean? We're forced always back in the business. Without a strong leadership team, it was very hard to not work in the business. But working on the business, when we look at growth, it was more an aspiration. Can you imagine if we were $10 million? Can you imagine if we hit 45% gross margin? Can you imagine if we did 12% EBITDA? So all the goals we set as entrepreneurs was always an aspirational goal. And the Elan framework is less about aspirational and more factual. It's what is the number you actually need to achieve and why
Mm,
you need to achieve it. And it's built on three models called the rule of four, profit gap, and value gap, and they all intertwine with each other. And what it is really, Julian, is we can talk about numbers. You and I can sit here and say, wow, can you imagine having $50 million? But what does $50 million mean to your personal life? The
mm,
rule of four is very basic. It's my family and I are used to making up a number, let's say $100,000 net a year.
mm,
Okay. So rule of four is that we know conservatively, you'll get 4% return on a GIC or something very basic in the markets, right? So something times 4% equals $100,000. When you determine what that number is, you just know, now you know your number. You know
mm.
your liquid investment you need in life to make at least $100,000 off your investment. So when you determine that number, you then have to look at what you actually have. Well, I have no RSPs. I have no investments. I'm $10,000 in the bank. Well, that means if that number was $10 million, let's say, that means you now have a profit gap of $10 million. Or let's say you have $1 million of assets. You have a profit gap of $9 million. Now you go to your value gap. What's my company worth? Instead of just saying, we're worth $20 million, right? And if I sell it, I'm going to get 6 million bucks, right?
Mm.
My revenue is 20 million. If I sell it, I'm going to get, well, if you're going to get 6 million bucks and you know your number is $9 million, you have a value gap of $3 million. So now
Mm.
you need to start thinking how you're going to grow your company or fix your company. Fix is not the wrong word, but evolve your company to fill in the additional $2 million. And this goes deeper. And I think when I talk to people about exit, again, they're like, oh, we're not interested in exit. But exit, Julian, is less about selling your company and more about having a foundational
Mm.
strategy to grow your company.
So, Michael, when you talk about the exit, you're telling these folks like you should be thinking about your exit first, like what do you really want and what do you really need, right? And I think you also want to tell them you got to be realistic, right? Yeah, yeah,
100%.
I want to have $1 billion. Yeah, great, good for you, man. So the reality is that you got to be realistic based on your needs and what you want to do. And so when you start with that exit thinking, that mindset, right? Here's what I need, here's my my profit gap, my value gap, and you kind of understand that number, right? You kind of know now that's where I'm going to go, that's where I want to go, right? And then you start to work your way back to figure out like
That's
how
right.
do you get there from here. So what are those the other pillars? How does all that stuff comes together to help them figure this thing in their heads?
Well, in the framework, the Elan framework, it talks about a few different models. There's another framework I developed called the IGL, the Infinite Growth Loop. And
Mm,
this is a synchronized, continuous loop between leadership, your CEO, your vision, where they want to go, um, a continuity to your leadership team. There has to be a seamless, strong continuity, your leadership team to your employees. And if all of that works really, really well, the employees are going to deliver what the CEO wants. So that's one model. It's the IGL. The other framework that's extremely important that I learned in my SEPA adventure is called the four intangible C's. And I hate these things. I have to be honest with you, I hate them because they illustrated how much money I left on the table.
Mhm.
Going through the four C's is human capital, structure capital, and social capital, and human, structure, social, and customer capital. And the reason why they call them intangible C's, Julian, is because no ERP, SAP, Oracle, QuickBooks, any account, they don't measure these things. But
Mhm.
focusing on your intangible C's will increase your multiple. Not only increase your multiple, it will build a much stronger foundation for your organization, which in turn will build your revenue, your gross margin, your EBITDA, and all that great stuff. It's funny, Julian. I spoke to you about this before. One of my most pivotal points in life is when I joined a mastermind group. Um, it really made me focus on the concept of working on the business versus in the business, and being able to bounce this kind of information from a peer group and learn through facilitation and through other collaborations. That was the start of my true journey, right? And I
Mhm.
was able to really focus on this kind of developments and frameworks that I've been building.
You
Um,
know,
so going back to Elan, I think it's very important that when what I hope people hear is we're not talking about selling your business.
hmm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
We're talking about prepping your company to sell. Whether you sell or not, it's indifferent.
So these four C's is interesting. The four C's that you hate, but the other four C's that's important, right? And you have to think in terms of assets in your company, right? You got your human assets, right? You got your business, your growth, and you also got your customers, right? And you
Mhm.
can have a lot of customers out there in the wrong industry, and that's not a really good,
That's right. That's right.
asset,
That's right. That's
right?
right. That's right.
If you're in a pandemic and you had everybody in the hospitality business, that could be bad. But now, maybe it's good. Um, how do you look at, a simple way, and we're not going to, boil the ocean right now, but how do you look at those four C's, and how do you sort of rate yourself? How do you kind of wrap your brains around each of those C's just to give them a bit of a, meat in that bone there?
Well, I will say again, dirty laundry, my umbrella, and yeah, again, our CEO Alex Webb did a great job in coaching me, trying to understand these aspects. Um, I would say my umbrella, we were, we had a great customer capital. I would give myself a 60% on all four.
Mm,
So there was a lot of room to grow, lots of
mm,
room to grow. And if I was able, the irony of this, and when people get acquired, they're always worried if they're going to get the right deal. A
mm,
company like F12, I heard this many times through our CEO directly, Alex, is that we would love to pay the most possible for your organization, right? You,
mm,
you, as long as you get your company to the point that the four C's, you're running a well-oiled machine. We are the first company to pay the most multiple possible on the market,
mm,
right? But if your company isn't in an exit perspective. If it's not ready to exit, then you're going to get what you're going to get. It's just basic math, believe it or not. Okay. So,
mm,
so with my Blumbella being at 60%, earlier in the conversation, I said, learning, getting my SEPA designation, I learned that I left a lot of money on the table. It's
mm.
because I was at 60%, and so it's not that I got cheated out. It's,
No,
it's not that,
it is
it's
what you're
just,
worth, right?
it
It
was
is. It
what
is what
I
it
was
is.
worth. It was
Yes.
what I was worth.
And of course, everything's they're worth 10x more than the others, right? Because that's just your personal, life and the way you think. But in reality, you're only worth what people are prepared to pay for you, right? I mean, I would love to sell, something for like, $1 million. Let's sell this cup here for, yeah. But who's going to pay that, right? It's like, what is it worth? And the reality is that you have to be realistic, and you have to look at what it is. And these are ways that I think it's just the way people, companies are evaluated, right? So
Yeah,
if
100%.
you're up or down in these areas, that's going to determine how much you can ultimately get. And maybe there's a little bit of a you get maybe an area 10, 15, 20% more, depending if you're a good salesperson or not.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
To
yeah,
pitch
yeah.
it and how you pitch it well. So there is that human capital. So we've got those four things, and obviously those are the things that probably most entrepreneurs need to kind of review first and sort of get a bit of a feel, right, for where you are. Honestly, I mean, we do this assessment thing every year where people can just fill in the blanks type thing, and you could lie, of course, on the test, but then it's going to give you a wrong result, right? Or you could say the truth, and then it gives you, where things are. So you have to be honest with yourself, I think, is what I'm hearing here, right, Michael?
100%. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it goes back to understanding your profit gap and value gap. This all starts about you, the
Mm,
CEO, the entrepreneur, the person that started this adventure. And it's having starting with the end in mind. And I can't say this enough, it's not about selling your company.
mm,
It's understanding your end goal, truly understanding your end goal, not just fictitiously saying a number in your head, but what is the true number that you need. And you're right, you said it bang on. Be realistic.
mm,
We all want $100 million. We all want $1 billion,
mm.
right? But for you and your family, what is the base essentials, your current living conditions, how you live today, how much do you need going forward? Now, for someone like me, I'm 51 years old, turning 51 in April, and I always gave myself 55, not 55 to retire, but 55 to kind of start slowing down. I will
Mm,
probably never retire. So my number I want to achieve by 55, right?
mm,
My number is, and have I hit my number? No. Even
mm.
though I sold a company, I did not hit that number yet. Now, I'm an investor in F12. I'm an investor in other organizations, and I have a running Excel spreadsheet that continuously tabulates that number. But I still have 4 years to hit that number, my rule of four, to fill in my profit gap and value gap.
No doubt you're going to get there, my friend. One of the things that we all, when I look at a business and numbers in particular, and I really don't like numbers in business in general. I kind of like stay out of that department. Um, but I always think of numbers in a business like an equalizer, on your amp. Those things where you can move levers up and make more bass and more treble and whatever. And they've got some of them with a lot of levers. And what do? You don't really know what's going on. So you just play with those things until it sounds good. But what sounds good to me it may not be right, because I may like more bass, I may like more treble. But then you put that in the hands of someone who understands, the frequencies and how those things work, right? A bit like a DJ, I guess. And when you start to understand how those things really work and why it works, right? Then you make great and better music. And but unless you really know how the damn levers, work, right? How the numbers come together to make great music, right? You're just like moving needles, man.
Yeah,
It's not
100%. I
cool.
couldn't have said it better, Julian. The challenge with entrepreneurship and CEOs is we all feel that, to a certain degree. I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but everyone feels that they know what they're doing.
Mm,
We're good. We're fixed. We don't need to be fixed. We don't need the consultation. But really, all of this is less about working in your business and more about truly working on the business and understanding base fundamentals. And I want to be very clear, this is agnostic to any industry. Everything I'm talking
mm,
about, it will work in the pharmacies, it will work in the franchises, it will work in every single business. This is not agnostic to IT, right? So learning these frameworks is truly not about, you know, not about you doing something wrong, but it's just you evolving as an entrepreneur, you continuously
mm,
growing as an entrepreneur. And it's probably one of my biggest hurdles in M&A right now is that when I talk to other CEOs, the first challenge is kind of diffusing that I'm perfect.
Mm,
I have no doubt you're perfect, right?
mm,
I have no doubt you did an amazing job because I was in your seat too, and I I did everything I could have, but I'm still 60% on my four C's. It doesn't mean I didn't do it right. I could have did it better, right?
yeah.
And it's important. If there's one message I would love to articulate to my fellow colleagues is it's it's okay to get further help. It's
Mm,
okay to learn more. It doesn't
mm.
mean you're less of an entrepreneur or less of a CEO.
One of the things I'll give you a little bit of a secret that I use when I speak with people, to sort of very quickly assess them, right? Particularly leaders in their business. And I'm always looking to see if they're either curious or not. And that's as simple as it, I mean, is this person curious about learning, curious about something, curious about anything, curious about the conversation, curious about the food, curious about whatever, just curious. And I find that folks that is not curious, um, they're missing out a lot in the world. They don't know what they don't know, because they think they know, and that's okay if you go through life like that. I mean, that's your choice, right? But I just find curiosity is one of those things that drives human behaviors, and the more curious you can be, the more you will absorb and learn. And I think that's sort of like the open door, if you will, to kind of learn.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's so funny you say that. I think the one thing I brought to F12, maybe I brought more than one thing, but one thing that stuck to the entire team, I remember it was probably my first or second year, and I live by this. It was in the DNA of my Blue Umbrella. It's in the DNA of my household, my kids, um, my own brothers and sisters. When they need that sort of confidence or that kind of push, they'll call me and remind me about this. Um, I live, and we all heard it before, art of possible.
Mm,
I live by the art of possible. So at my Bloom umbrella and at F12, I want to hear the curiosity. I want to
mm,
hear the creativity. It's when I hear that it's always an end goal, or we can't, or that's not possible, or that's my negativity. And in my book, if you remember, I wrote a whole entire chapter of kryptonite I mean, negativity is my kryptonite. Like,
mm,
it kills me. So I couldn't agree more, Julian. Curiosity it should never die out in an entrepreneur, right? That is our DNA. Art of possible is what started our company. Could you imagine if we can do this? Can
mm,
you imagine if we can convert into an MSP? Can you imagine if we can convert into a cybersecurity company? And
mm.
so it's extremely important to have that curiosity at peak, at 100% peak at all times, in my perspective. So I couldn't agree with you more, Julian.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. It's funny, when you look at kids, right? And I've seen a lot of kids, grow up and so on. And I always look at them as, are they curious or not? And the ones that's not curious, I wonder about them. Like, what's your parents doing wrong, man? But the reality is that curiosity is something that I think we should never outgrow. But sometimes, Michael, things don't go right. Things do go wrong, right? There's always something going on. There's always some economical issue. There's always some pandemic. There's always something that is dropped into the entrepreneur world that is a game changer. How do you help advise people on how to navigate these downsides?
Well, it's funny it's funny, but in the Elan framework, I actually touch upon that. There's times to pivot, refocus, and assess, right?
Mm,
Um, so understanding, always keeping true to that end in mind, and full transparency, I don't like using the word end, but it is what it is. There's an end goal, but it doesn't mean it's the ending of everything. But understanding your destination, where you really, really want to go. And during this journey, during this roadmap, when you keep on hitting hurdles, you need to truly assess, right? Always constantly assess.
Mm,
What am I doing wrong? Reassess, reassess, reassess. If you need to pivot, pivot. And if all else fails, Julian, it's okay to exit early,
mm,
right? So I was a $10 million CEO. It doesn't mean I'm going to be a great $50 million CEO. It doesn't mean I'm going to be a great $100 million CEO, right? We would love to aspire to get there, right? When I was confronted to join F12, it was one of my pivots where I had to decide as a $10 million CEO, do I want to continue on my own and try to become a $50 million CEO? Do I want to join F12 and be part of a $100 million company? So that was one of my assessments there. I assessed, uh, I did pivot, and I exited. It was time for me to exit.
And you
So
know
it's
what? I just want to
extremely
say a couple of things here. Like maybe even your 60%, assessment, right? Um, that was a smart move to decide. You know what? At this moment, yeah, I could adjust and kind of get to my 100%. But right now, this opportunity is going to gear me up into a whole different lane, right? And you end up getting to where you want to be, but in a different sort of a way. Take an opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. Julian, what I learned as a $10 million company was incredible. I have, it built who I am today. But what I learned as a $70 million company
Mm,
is absolutely different.
mm,
It's incredible the amount of knowledge that I got to absorb in the last 4 years. And I'm intuitive enough. I'm the type of person that I love learning.
mm.
I want to learn more. Just teach me more, teach me more. Not everyone's like me, but so I think there was something there when I assessed it, I made the right judgment call. Will I ever become 100 million? I was 46 years old. Do I really want to try to go from 10 to 100 million myself, or do I join a $100 million company and really start gaining the knowledge of a $100 million company? Our PE company, Clarvest Group, incredible organization, really intuitive, really smart group of people. I think we were very lucky to partner with Clarvest. So all of it just made a lot of sense, and what made me pivot and exit.
Yeah, there was another old saying, I don't even know who made it up, but generally it was like, if you want to go, fast, go alone, you want to go far, go together. And there is power in numbers. It's one of those things why you talked about why, those mastermind peer groups, right? When you get together with a bunch of folks that's like-minded and sharing their stories because they all want to kind of help each other and lean in each other and collaborate, right? It's that the power of group, right? That group force is quite extraordinary. So if anybody want to learn more about this stuff, you may want to consider joining up a group that maybe Michael can help you run and make it work as well. Couple last questions before we wrap up here. So the reality is for this is not just for only business, as you mentioned, right? I mean, this could help you in your business and achieve, but it's kind of in a way, it's a kind of a way of living. How do you want to? Can you elaborate a little bit? What do you say about that?
So I'll give you a fun, quick story, and it's all an exit. It's all an exit. When I got acquired, I don't know if you know this, Julian. I don't know if I shared this with you, but for 46 years, I was terrified of flying. Terrified. Like
Mm,
I was one of those people you're going to YouTube on a plane because I'm having the panic attack, right? It was like this guy's crazy type thing.
mm,
So 46 years, I was always afraid of flying, and I said to my wife, I said, "Listen, we need to fix this. This kind of F12 is going to want me to fly, right? It's going to be pretty hard to say, hey, Alex." I need to buy my wife a ticket to hold my hand, right?
well, it
It's,
works too, right?
yeah. So 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 I went to get therapy. It's cognitive behavior treatment. And long story short, the first therapist says, Michael, I think you need to join a gym. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, so just let me say, my end goal there, my exit strategy for this challenge was I need to fly.
Mm,
I know my exit strategy, my end result, the end in mind. I need to get on a plane by myself with no one and not have a fiasco to get arrested from through. Yeah.
It
So
goes
so
viral these days, by the way, as viral
I
videos.
know. Yeah. So I knew my end goal, and I had to start reverse engineering how I'm going to get there. And so we researched it, and there's something called cognitive behavior treatment. It's a therapy. So the funny part is, my first one, I went there, and within the first session, this lovely young lady said, "Join the gym," and I'm like, "Excuse me, I'm here for my head, not my weight." You know what I mean, like, so I never went back to her. I went to another CBT therapist, and the first session was great. The second, so all the roadmap to my end goal is the steps I need to get to flying alone. By the second session on the second therapist, believe it or not, the second therapist told me to join the gym. And I honestly, Julian, I thought it was candid camera. I'm like, what's putting you guys up to this? Like, is this a joke? Yeah. So I get home and I was livid, I was angry, and my wife looks at me and says, "You want to fly? You know your end goal. You got two pieces of advice to join a gym. You belong to a gym. Go work out." I mean, like, why is it so hard?
Not gonna
so
hurt.
I so I had to assess. I pivoted, and I said, okay, let me join a gym. And being a red type A player, I'm at the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week, going strong, lost weight, feeling great. I get a phone call from F12 and saying, "Hey, we need you in Edmonton." I'm like, "Uh-oh." You know,
Best time.
Julian, I flew dozens of times alone,
Mm.
alone, never panicked again. I enjoy flying. I thoroughly enjoy flying now, all by going to a gym. So the
That's
Elan,
crazy, but
I know,
I'm hearing it and I'm going, really? Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
So the Elan methodology helped me. It was all in perspective. My end goal, start with the end. My end was flying.
Mm.
I had to reverse engineer. Well, how do I do that? I'm afraid of flying. I did research. I looked at a roadmap. Let me go to CBT, two of them, and then joined the gym. I reached my result. So
Mm.
the Elan framework is not just about business, it's training your mind to be goal or truly goal oriented and reverse engineer how you're going to get there.
All right, I'm gonna have to unpack that going to the gym to get over flying. You got me spinning there, but you know what? I mean, the reality is that you got to push yourself, and I think at gyms you push yourself,
Yeah,
you're
100%.
tired. I want to get out there. Yeah, I'm tired. I just watch TV, but no, you keep pushing yourself. I got some sore muscles from yesterday. I pushed myself a little bit too much, but you look, this is amazing. So I just want to say that I know you personally, and I know that your journey, and I know what you've done. You've talked at many of our events and tried to help a lot of MSPs to become better at what they're doing, and they need help, right? And it's not bad to ask for help, right? Like you said, I can't fly. I need help, and then someone always knows how to help you through whatever promise. And so I will leave it here by saying this: more to come, right? This is a topic that we are talking a lot about M&As and how to exit and all that beautiful evaluation, EBITDA stuff. We always want to make sure that's part of the world we're dealing with. Um, and moving forward, right, I'd like to encourage anyone, any MSP, anybody, right, who is interested in learning how to get involved with the Elan process that Michael has developed here, to reach out, right, and consider, right, being part of a peer group, or maybe by yourself in your own company. It's your decision, right? But get together and maybe you can get some pointers and lead to where you want to be in great success. Um, Michael, you get the last word, my friend. What do you want everybody? There's one thing or something that you want everybody to leave with. What is that?
I will say, I another saying I say very often: we're all individually strong. I have no doubt in my mind, Julian, you, myself, and everyone at your last event in incredibly strong organizations. but collectively we can be extraordinary.
Mm.
And it's time for us to be collectively extraordinary and build a future together.
Love it, brother. And by the way, as you can tell, Michael's an amazingly well-dressed human, right? So
Thank you.
congrats on that stuff, brother. Michael, it's always a pleasure. We'll be doing more of these things. The channel is there's a long way to go. It's a journey. There's tens and tens of thousands of MSPs out there that is struggling. And one of the things, I just look at the bottom line. We're February 2025. If you want to date this session, and in 2025, MSPs will grow by 13% on average. The business will grow by 13%, and it'll be a $595 billion industry in 2025. Right? That's just a quarter of what the analysts are saying. So it's kind of big, and it's growing, right? And the question is, are you getting your fair share of that pie? And if the answer is cool and yes, bravo. All right. But if the answer is maybe not, or you want to know how big a piece of the pie you should get, reach out to folks like Michael, because they've been there, done that, and they can give you advice and actually help you. All right. Michael, always a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.